Could you imagine what modern-day transportation would look like without the existence of airlines? With air travel, global transportation is more simplified as people are satisfied that they can be wherever they want to be safely and in good time. This must have been the assumption of the 227 passengers aboard the Malaysian Flight 370 on the 8th of March 2014. They had boarded the flight in Kuala Lumpur International Airport, hoping to arrive in Beijing in the next 6 hours. But what was supposed to be a 6-hour trip has become a mystery journey that no one could explain today. The plane had left the Kuala Lumpur Airport at about 12:42 a.m. and was in flight and in touch with the radar until it took a detour. From radar readings, the plane had turned towards another route and suddenly went off the radar. Please be cautious of the following trigger warnings: details of missing people and presumed death count. The fate of the Malaysian Flight 370 remains a big puzzle till today, as attempts to establish concrete details about what happened have only led to several conspiracy theories without results. What could possibly have happened to the flight? Here's all we know about the fateful March 8th airline disappearance. Sequence of events. The Malaysian Airline 370 had taken off from Kuala Lumpur International Airport at about 18 minutes to 1 a.m. in the early hours of March 8, 2014. Flying at an altitude of about 35,000 feet on the Igari Navigational Wayport, the crew communicated altitude with the Kuala Lumpur Air Traffic Control. Aboard the flight were 227 passengers, all nationals of different countries, and 12 flight crew members. They were scheduled to arrive in Beijing, China at about 6:30 a.m. But less than 40 minutes into the flight, the 370 Airlines had stopped communicating with the ATC. Soon the flight was no longer on the ATC radar. For another 1 hour, it was monitored on the military radar, but surprisingly, the 370 aircraft had detoured from its scheduled route. The flight was supposed to travel northeast towards Beijing, but had headed west and crossed as far as the Andaman Sea. At about past 2 a.m., the flight continued in this direction until it disappeared from the military radar as well. According to data analyzed from Inmarsat's satellite communications network, it was observed that the flight continued for another 6 hours until around past 8:19 a.m., when no traces of it was found. At this point, the flight was over the southern Indian Ocean, where it was presumed to have crashed. Communication with Flight 370. Before the disappearance of Flight 370, the captain on the flight, Catherine Zari, had acknowledged the flight's transition to Ho Chi Minh from Lumpur radar. Also, the last automated report transmitted from the flight showed that it still had 43,800 kilograms of fuel at the time. After these, the flight was supposed to contact Ho Chi Minh ATC, but didn't make contact with it. Hence, the captain of another aircraft contacted Flight 370 to contact the ATC, but got no response. He later reported that he had heard mumbling and static but no other response. For another 5 hours, several calls were made to the Flight 370 cockpit, but there was no response, even though the flight's SDU acknowledged the calls. Thailand and Vietnam also attested the appearance of Flight 370 on their radar at the same time it disappeared on the military radar, but later disappeared at a point when the aircraft's transponder is thought to have stopped working or turned off. Despite all of these, the Flight 370 maintained satellite communication and continued to respond to status requests until around past 8 a.m. It also acknowledged 2 ground calls to the aircraft, although the calls were unanswered. It sent its last log-on request at 8:19 a.m., after which the Inmarsat sent a status request at 9:15 a.m. but got no response. Search efforts for the Malaysian Flight 370. The Flight 370 had crossed different international airspace at the time of its tracking. This led to various search attempts by different countries. Since its flight path headed towards the Indian Ocean, it was only logical to presume that the 370 must have crashed into the sea, as there was no possible landing site in the area. The search was initially set around the Gulf of Thailand and extended as far as the Andaman Sea. The search continued towards the South Indian Ocean, which Australia took up on the 17th of March. Despite an extensive search of the seafloor of Western Australia, there was still no evidence of the plane's debris. Ocean Infinity, a private U.S. marine exploration company, also joined in the search in January 2018, which still yielded no results. Although some parts of the plane debris were found around the beaches of the Indian Ocean around October 2017, and some were confirmed to be likely parts of the Malaysia Flight 370. The first of them was a flaperon found in late 2015 and verified to be for the 370, although the plane was never found in whole. So what actually happened to the aircraft? Different conspiracy theories have arisen as to what happened to the flight. From the findings of the Malaysian government and debris recovered, it was concluded that the Flight 370 probably crashed into the sea after exhausting its fuel reserve. But the reroute of the airplane of its scheduled part leaves many questions unanswered. Some people believe that since the 370 remained on a defined path and a normal flight altitude, it could possibly have been a case of a hijack or a murder-suicide by the flight's captain. While some think the disappearance of the aircraft might be due to a crack in the plane, assuming that the crack might have led to a breakup in the plane, allowing a major part to fall off in an unknown location. Another closely related theory is that the cabin could have suddenly depressurized while the captain was on a break, leaving only the co-pilot in the cockpit. Then it would have been a case where only pilot Hamid was left alive flying just the cockpit until he crashed somewhere in the ocean. There were also other positions that assumed that the aircraft was flown to a secret location via a cyber hijack. The theory posed the possibility that the plane's autopilot programming system could have been hacked and reprogrammed to a different location. Other interesting theories suggested a possible steal by UFO, while some posed the plane could have been shot down or crashed into a jungle in Cambodia. Some assumed it could have been a case of possible terrorist hijack, as the 2 Iranian passengers were aboard the flight on a fake passport ID. But the Malaysian government later cleared them to be asylum seekers. Following the event, the media reported some witness accounts on sightings of the aircraft. 2 people were noted to have sighted a burning object and a burning aircraft respectively in different locations. A fisherman was also reported to have sighted a low-lying aircraft off the Kota Baru coast. If these accounts are taken into consideration, it corroborates with the Malaysian government's position that the plane crashed into the sea. But why the whole part of the plane remains missing is still a mystery. Final thoughts. The best known detail of the Malaysian Flight 370's disappearance is possibly a crash into the Indian Ocean. Whatever happened to the flight remains an unfortunate incident that has cost countries expensively. The search for this flight happens to be the second most expensive in the world's history, sadly yielding no satisfactory results to date. Is anyone really to blame for this unfortunate incident? Could this disaster be possibly have avoided? We'd like to know your thoughts in the comments section. Remember to hit the like button if you enjoyed this video, subscribe to our channel, and smash that notification bell. We'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.